Welcome. For anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Elle. I am the UK Community Manager for Adventure Cycling. Also now the proud founder of the School of Rocks.
What is the School of Rocks, Elle?
So the School of Rocks was, I ride quite regularly with some road cycling friends, and I was a roadie to start off with, as were you, Katherine. Like, we were all roadies once. And a lot of them were buying gravel bikes, and I was taking them out on gravel rides and just like scaring the shit out of them a bit, like by accident, but just like you become so like normal with what you ride, and then you take a friend on it and you're like, oh, why are you scared shitless? And they're like, this is not fun. And so the School of Rocks is like, the rides start off like super easy and gentle, like you can do them on a touring bike or a 28mm road bike, just like really nice smooth gravel, like no crazy downhills, and then they like gradually progress each week, so each week introducing sectors that are maybe a little bit more rough or with a bit more incline, but like the most important thing is it's fun, so that everybody leaves every ride feeling like that was enjoyable, and that's how we're going to build confidence, by doing it regularly and not actually making it challenging, just making it fun. So
Such a good idea. It's wicked.
It's so fun. Yeah, it's really nice. And with me, my co-hostess with the mostess, we have Katherine Moore.
Yeah, not much to add here. Thank you very much, Al, for putting this on for us today. As you may well know, Adventure is sponsored by Komoot, and it's what we use for all of our route planning. I've been also working for Komoot for a few years, and so I'm very familiar with the app, but I think we did a couple of these at the beginning of lockdown 1, and I learned something in every single one, and there's always new tips and tricks and things coming out, so always good to tune in and brush up on route planning skills, especially now in the UK that we're sort of coming out of lockdown, and there's this whole new realm of possibility for hopefully getting out and about this summer a bit more. So yeah, I'm looking forward to learning something new today as well. I don't know.
Oh, no pressure. Maybe the new thing you'll just learn is like how bad my jokes really are.
Oh, I already knew that.
Awesome. And then I always share this slide. So this is actually the team behind Komoot. It's taken 2 summers ago. And the reason I like to share this is that like we are a team of about 70 people, and we all love the outdoors just as much as you do. So we understand the importance of accurate surface information, elevation data, like how important those highlights are to you. We kind of like, yeah, we get the mentality, and we're all lovely humans, and we like to hear your amazing stories, your feedback, and that's how we can keep on improving the product and to build the biggest outdoor community in the world, which is pretty exciting. So what is Komoot? So Komoot is first and foremost, it's a route planner. It's your route to adventure. And kind of like from the beginning, Komoot has always been about being mobile first, because it came from this place of wanting to open up adventure and exploration to a wider audience. And mobiles are just really powerful because there's this GPS technology that is in the pockets of a lot of people. The idea is that you don't need any specialist equipment. And it also means for adventurers that wherever you are, you've got the really powerful route planner on your phone. So if you are on like day 3 of a big adventure and something's gone wrong and you need to replan on the fly, or actually it's going better than you expected and you're like, hey, we can up our daily mileage, and you've got all of this ability to chop and change your route and be as spontaneous as you are, rather than being limited by, oh, I haven't got a desktop, which is pretty awesome. And then this is, I think, the thing that sets Komoot out from a lot of the competitors is, and it comes back to this idea of wanting to open up adventure and exploration to a wider audience. It's great if you know where to go, where, like how to have a great experience and a great adventure. But if you don't, maybe because you're new to an area, or actually like you're not from a background where outdoor exploration has been something that's necessarily been available to you, then highlights allow you to explore like a local. So whether it's like some amazing double track through a forest, an amazing cafe to have gelato, or like a way of exploring places that you're like, oh yeah, I want to go there. And so you can see here we've got a couple of highlights from Girona. So it's a really cool way to share amazing places and also to discover them. And it's also a way to share your stories and get inspired. So here we've got some screenshots, Katherine, of your Second City Divide route. Oh, hello, Kat.
She's always so needy when I do Zoom calls and webinars.
I did promise it would be like a TED Talk, but with more cats.
Well, there's the first.
Awesome. Yeah, so this is your collection. So as you can see, these collection features are amazing because they allow you to share your routes, your stories, your photos, and also any like films and videos that you make, all in one place. So I don't know if you want to say a couple of sentences about your Second City Divide.
Oh wow,
so long ago now.
I watched the little video that my friend Tudor put together the other day, and I was just like, oh my gosh, that must have been like the best trip of my life. Yeah, it seems like a really long time ago, not only because it was 18 months ago, but also what we've all been living through over the last year or so. But yeah, if anybody's thinking about doing it this year or in the future, 100% recommend. It's absolutely incredible route. And Kitty, yeah, fabulous. Recommend.
Have you planned anything for this summer, or are you leaving it kind of up to spontaneity?
I'm working on a little project down on my home turf in Devon, which I won't say too much more about. So I've been down there quite a lot. And I really would like to finish off my sort of Land's End to John O'Groats mission. So I've got as far as Glasgow now with Second City Divide. So I just need to link that up. I actually want to go to Cape Wrath on the
that would be amazing.
western side. Yeah, and then you get a little certificate and a roundel from Cycling UK as well.
For going to Cape Wrath?
Yeah, you can become part of the Cape Wrath Fellowship, I think it's called. So yeah, that would be amazing. And there's a little bothy right on the tip as well, which I think is a bit more exciting than John O'Groats from what I've heard, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's nice. I think John O'Groats is a bit of like a not an anticlimax, but you kind of get there and it's John O'Groats, but actually it wasn't so much about the destination, it was about the journey. Whereas Cape Wrath,
well, that's the same as the end of any big bikepacking trip, isn't it? You get to the end and you're like, woohoo, I've done it. Oh, but now it's over.
But now I eat.
Yeah, and sleep.
Yeah, and maybe have a shower. Awesome, thanks for that, Katherine. And so while you can use Komoot on your phone anywhere you go, there's also really smart integrations for pretty much any device with profile and Bluetooth Connect. So you can plan with Komoot and then you can navigate on your Garmin Wahoo. The latest one we launched was Sunto. So if anybody has any specific questions about those, either drop them in the Q&A or check out some of our support pages, because we've got quite detailed support articles on each individual integration, because they're all quite different.
Oh dear, I'm getting told off by Mark about how it's not Roth, it's Wrath. Sorry, Wrath. I apologise. Okay, Wrath.
Work on your Scottish accent.
Yeah.
And then because most of you, we think, have been to one of these before, we thought we'd also let you know some of the more recent product updates. So the first one is the maps. So you've got here, like on the left, there's like a before, and on the right, there's like an after. So we've changed the design of the maps to make like areas and trails of significance, like national parks, nature reserves, cycle routes stand out much more. The colours are sharper, and there's some slightly new colour coding. So these places are easier to find when you're planning.
The train thing is really handy, I think, for finding train stations, because you can glance at that, can't you, and know that Oh, I'm not even going to try and pronounce that. But you know that there's going to be a major train junction there. And then, yeah, as soon as you zoom in, you can see the stations. It's really handy.
Yeah, definitely. It can also be quite useful. Like, I don't know how many countries do it, but like Southtrans in the UK, they have a lot of like old train lines as
rail trails. Yeah, converted routes. Yeah.
Just
really lucky to have so many of those.
Yeah, definitely. And then, then the other feature that we've launched recently is the Komoot social share feature, which is a really easy way for you to share your completed tours and photos directly with your friends and followers on Instagram, which is super cool. Awesome. So let's start the workshop. Bear with me while I change my screen. Well, hey, is that working?
Yes.
Awesome. You can tell it's been a while since I've done the webinar. A bit rusty.
All good.
Awesome. So this is the Komoot homepage. When you come in, if you're in the UK, Belgium, and the Netherlands, or Germany, Austria, Switzerland, you will have this Discover tab. And this is a really cool way for you to see what your friends are up to, but also to kind of like tap in, I guess, to some of Komoot's amazing routes and collections. So you can search for this using this bar at the top. You can either search by sport and location and hit search, or if you're not sure where you want to go, you can browse routes and topics. So this can be a really nice way of seeing some of the content that's already on here. Katherine mentioned at the beginning that she's like an editor for Komoot, so that means, I guess, that you get to spend your time researching amazing routes and putting them together and publishing them on Komoot.
Yeah, which is a huge tease. Just like, I want to do them all. Yeah.
I do occasionally get funny text messages from Kat being like, hey, I found your highlight in like the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, in the Wild About Argyll, which is in the Inner Hebrides. Just found like a random picture of Elle's boyfriend in a painted shed that was a little cake stop. It's like, I recognise this person.
That was a total saviour. It was one of those days where we'd just run out of food, and we were expecting there to be like somewhere. We had a look at the map and we thought there was going to be somewhere to refuel, and there wasn't. And we were sort of, I was very hangry. Liam was okay. And then just as we found the little cake shed, it started hailing, so we could just like shelter in there eating cake and be like, oh, amazing, why are we doing this? So yeah, that's the Discover feature, so it's definitely worth spending a little bit of time armchair exploring through there. Also, if you're new to an area, then you could say look for like bike touring in Bristol, and search and get some really nice suggestions.
Oh, the Discover tab, that's available to everyone regardless of whether you have premium or not, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. So
Jackie was asking, Jackie, it'd be interesting to know whereabouts you're based, I think. So the Discover feature is based off of like popularity data. So we have to reach like a threshold of users within a country in order for us to be able to like properly assess the quality of some of the suggestions that are being put forward. So when you search like this and scroll down, these tours that will come up here, they're actually based off our heat map data. So they've been done by other people doing that sport type. So like this has been done by other like cycle tourists. So you know that it's super popular, and that also the surfaces and the things along the way are going to be appropriate for your like sport type. So yeah, I wonder where you're in Worcester. Okay, well, in which case, hit the three little dots next to your name, go to your settings, and go down to Discover and tick box Enable Discover. There we go.
And then you will get all of the juicy suggestions to your feed. There's also a few things that you can explore in your settings. Like also... the
privacy is a really good one, isn't it? That's quite new.
Yeah, we launched this halfway through last year, I think. And so this is really cool. So you can change the privacy settings of your profile. You can also block users, and you can set yourself a privacy zone. So you can put, for example, your home and your work, and the location of any like friends, partners, parents that you ride to frequently. You can pop them there. Awesome, fixed Jackie's problem. Yeah, I'm a person in Manchester. Awesome, cool. So that's the Discover feed and how you can, I guess, like follow great adventures or rides with people that you like following. Give Lizzie Banks some love. And you'll also get suggestions in your feed as well based on your preferences, which is really nice. I guess that's like the community element. But that's what everybody came for, is the route planning. So let's get to the chase, Eleanor. Here we go. I might actually just turn my video off just to give my computer a helping hand. There we go. Are we good?
Yeah.
Slowly loading. Awesome. So when you open the route planner, what I'll do is I'm gonna focus on the free features. I'll like specifically say if something is not available in the free feature, in the free version. To start planning your route, first of all, I'd sort of start off with like customizing my map. So at the moment, I've obviously been planning in gravel riding because it's opened up the route planner. It'll always open it up in whatever previous sport you used last. But you can play around a little bit there. And then based on your sport type, it will change the little red dots that are visible. These little red dots are the highlights that I mentioned earlier. So they're the lovely places that people think that you could explore and check out. And they might be anything from a segment, something that you should ride because it's really fun, or maybe it has an amazing view, to maybe like a lovely like monument or place to go and see, somewhere to watch the sunset, which is really nice. And then as well as having the highlights on the map, you can also add points of interest from OpenStreetMap. So Komoot uses OpenStreetMap for like all the base map data. It's also where we get the surface information from, and then you can pull additional points of interest by clicking into the search bar and scrolling down. So you can turn highlights off if you don't want them, or if you only want to show places that you've bookmarked rather than all of the highlights, for example. You can do that. You can see here that I've bookmarked some local highlights. But then, yeah, you can also choose to add additional things. Maybe you're planning your first post-lockdown adventure and you want to add on some camping grounds and see where these are. Or really useful for sort of adventuring in the summer, public water fountains, knowing where you can top up your water bottles. But yeah, there's a few different types of point of interest. So that can be really useful.
That's really handy. I don't use that very regularly. I always forget that e-bike charging points as well.
Yeah.
Becoming more and more relevant.
Yeah, it's really good actually if you're using it in the mountains in like the Alps, because shelters brings up all of the little like mountain huts.
Yeah.
Like in the UK, you mostly get bus stops. But you will in Scotland, you will get Audax hotels. You get the odd bothy. It does work, but yeah, like, you know, a lot of these are bus stops. And I think it's just how they're categorized in OSM. But yeah, it's quite funny. And these all work on the mobile as well, so they're quite useful for if you're out and about. I think that's when I've used them before. Mostly it's like looking for something like along my route. Which is quite useful.
Oh, would you be able to explain just a bit about OSM and how the map is generated from that? Chris was just asking, like, can you add these as users?
Yes, you can. I'll do a very bad job of explaining this. So feel free to chip in when you know, because I know you do a lot of OSM editing. Actually, maybe you should just take this question.
Oh, yeah. Well, essentially, from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, most mapping apps are based off of OSM, which is OpenStreetMap, open source map, something like that. And it's
OpenStreetMap. Yeah,
OpenStreetMap, a community generated digital mapping. So if you think about like coming around with computers and stuff, we didn't even have any of this stuff digitized until the last couple of decades. And it's from that one source that all route planning apps pull their information. So if you look at things like on Komoot, how you grade surfaces or what type of way it is, whether it's a bridleway or a footpath or whatever, all of that originates in OpenStreetMap. And what's really handy is that if you see something in your local area or something that you've ridden that doesn't seem right, so maybe something's changed designation, or the right of way or a new mountain biking trail isn't even on the map, then you can log in as a user on OpenStreetMap and edit it. And then within a couple of weeks, because it has to refresh, it will then appear on Komoot. So yeah, it's really easy to actually change it if you can improve it, which is really cool.
Yeah, you can actually click directly into OSM from the Komoot map.
Can
so
you?
You can press command, so command option and click on a Mac, or it's then I think it's Control Alt and click on a Windows.
Oh, wicked.
Alt command or something or other. If you Google like Komoot OSM, it'll find you the help article. But what that does is it'll open up OSM exactly where you clicked. This is really cool, and then you can scroll in. Am I logged in here? So you can log in, set yourself up with an account, and then you can go in and edit. And so yeah, if there's like something that's in there incorrectly or whatever, you can go in and change it.
It's really useful. I was using it a lot a couple of months ago. I was helping somebody on a project through Norway and Sweden, where a lot of the roads exist, obviously, a lot of these logging roads, but they weren't hadn't been digitized yet. So you can use different satellite imagery or different map layers on OpenStreetMap to then give an image which you can then use to trace for new road types. Really, really fascinating. If you're a map nerd like I
am. I think you're not the only map nerd in this webinar. But yeah, you can upload a GPS trace similarly. So if you've ridden something and it's not in the map, you can upload your trace, and then you can draw lines in OSM to add it.
Yeah,
which is super cool. I think of it as like Wikipedia but for maps.
Yeah, it's like the one source. Sorry, that was a bit of a tangent, but I think it's really interesting to understand where all the data actually comes from to make the maps, and that's got to be accurate for then the algorithm to sort of do the job.
Yeah,
give you the right stuff.
And so then it's all these fields in here that will come up in Komoot. So here you can see this is a footpath. So obviously, we're allowed on foot. Nobody else is. But also things like the highway, any references, the surface. This is where all the surface information in Komoot comes from. And you can usually also see like what the source of that information is sometimes. So it'll come from like a survey or satellite data. Got a hedge. I'm trying to click on the road to show you how this.
Paul's asked a really good question. So he's asking who's verifying that the changes are legitimate. I think when you save your changes, you can opt for somebody to check them, which is quite good. Yeah. But otherwise, it's all community generated and improved.
Yeah, and community moderated as well.
Yeah. I've had messages before when I've done something slightly wrong, and they show you how to improve it. So it's really, really good, actually.
Yeah, it's really, if you go, so this is like a minor road. This is where like one-way information comes from, how many lanes, surface, any structures associated with it. There's no name for this road. And also the speed limit. And so this is when Komoot's algorithm is making like a decision based on what way to route you, it's taking all of this information into account. So if you're road cycling, for example, then it's going to look for roads where you can get up to speed, but where there aren't like dual carriageways and things like that, and so it's not putting you on busy roads. And then ditto for like gravel riding, it's looking for like minor roads, you know, roads where there's not cars like traveling quickly, and then also like the bridleways and the byways. So that's where all that info comes from. And yes, so if you make a change in OpenStreetMap, we take a new download of OSM data every other Friday. So it'll take like 2 weeks, and then your changes will be live.
And it's actually really rewarding when you've made a little change and then you go back and plot something in Komoot and it's there. It's great. I love it. It's so geeky, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really nice. It's also really satisfying if it's like one of those annoying things that like you find that like two ways aren't joined properly, and then you like link them, and then you no longer have to do like an annoying little off-grid section to have like your route going continuously.
Yeah, that's handy.
Oh, my internet frozen. There we go. Sorry, my internet had a little wobble. We're back. Oh, no, unstable.
Can I ask you a question, Elle, whilst that's loading? We've got one.
Yeah.
Does the fitness level affect where the route goes at all? I never thought about that. Is it just for timing estimates?
It's just for timing estimates. So the algorithm will always pick the most efficient way between two waypoints, and it doesn't make a difference based on fitness. It assumes that a hill is going to be worth it for a quicker route, regardless of your fitness level, for example. Okay. It will just change the estimated time. But yeah, it's a good point actually. So I can feed it back to the routing product manager.
It's interesting.
And I noticed that somebody asked a question about that the route planner features gravel as a sport, but the Discover tab doesn't. This is because we have a routing algorithm for gravel, but we don't have it as kind of like more of like a sport type overall for the Discover feed. But that is something that we're looking at developing. So we've got a big project around improving our sort of like gravel functionality, because it was built, I guess, when gravel was still like really new. In its infancy. And yeah, obviously it's exploded quite a lot. So we want to update our sort of like our gravel functionality to reflect that, because obviously we have the best route planner for it. Cool. Any more questions before I dive into the route demo?
There is one here. Is there a reason why the National Cycle Network, NCN, routes aren't included in the map layers? Is that to do with premium?
So not entirely. So going back to, I say normally like I'd customize my map. So you can choose from the different map layers. So there are these 3 sport specific maps that are available in premium, but you can, in the free version, you can use OpenCycleMap, and this will show you the national cycle routes.
So handy.
So if you are, they're just it's the color contrast that I really appreciate, because it's just like you can make a beeline for them. But yeah, so if you are a premium subscriber, then these are visible in the premium bike touring map player, and that's what they look like. So it's the same information, but yeah, you can access these as a free user using OpenCycleMap.
Nice. I love the mountain bike specific map for on premium, because you can go to a new trail centre like literally anywhere in the country, and it'll just have all the trails there for you. I don't know if it will show the ones in Ashton Court maybe, or across in South Wales. From like a distance, you can pinpoint exactly where all the good trails are, or legitimate trails at least.
What I really like about the mountain biking map is that, as well as showing you like official trail centers, it also shows you these little snippets. So if you're planning either a gravel ride and you want to include something a little bit more spicy, or you're doing like more of a cross-country mountain bike ride, you can look for these little snippets, and it just kind of lights them up for you, so you can make a bit of a beeline. But yeah,
sorry, I'll stop interrupting you now.
No, it's good. I prefer it. I don't really have much of a plan for this. I was just gonna kind of wing it, so suits me. But yes, the other map that I use quite a lot is Google Satellite, because you can get quite a high level of zoom on Google Satellite. So if you are looking at something and you're like, oh, I'm trying to work out what that looks like, how obvious is the trail? In Wales, a lot of the time you're like, is it a bog, is it a sheep track, or is it like a well trodden or ridden trail? It's a frequent question. So with Google Satellite, you can zoom right in and you can see, oh yeah, like this is going to be really easy to follow, or you can sort of see like, oh no, okay, this is a bog, or this is just going to be difficult, and I need to have my wits about me to make sure that I don't go totally off piece, because we've all been there.
Oh yeah,
right. Biggest foe of satellite is gates. Yes, it is, Chris, but you can then try and like toggle between. So if you go into the Komoot map, it will show you gates and barriers, as well Open Cycle Map and Open Street Map. I'm trying to see if I can find one. They are shown. If you click on the question mark in the bottom right hand corner, this brings up the Komoot key. So this is really useful, as well as some little tips and tricks for using the map. So if I look at the map key, you can see how everything is shown. And yeah, gates and cycling barriers and border checkpoints. So yeah, that's quite useful. Again, it's if they're in OSM, they will be shown. If they're not, then you can add them in. Awesome. Cool. So let's start planning a route. Where do you fancy going?
Should we go to Mendips? That's my favourite at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's. Where shall we meet in Bristol?
Little Victories. Is that a good one? Wapping Wharf.
I wonder if it will. There's too many places. There we go.
Nice.
Took a punt and it worked. So
that's a good cafe stop in Bristol if anybody's visiting.
Yeah. It's a lovely little place on the harbour. It's actually quite a good place to start a ride, because there's loads of space, and you can have a coffee and a cake to turbocharge. And then I don't know about you, Catherine, but the way I like to plan a route is kind of like almost to plan it as I would ride it. So rather than putting in the destination of the Mendips, I'm kind of going to start by piecing together like my route out of Bristol.
Yeah.
So which way should we go? Maybe take the new little bike path through Ashton Court.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do this by setting it as my destination. And then I'm just going to extend my route by extending the endpoint, essentially. So it's suggesting we go this way out. I always get lost in Bedminster, so I'm just going to drag this one back onto the main road. It's not too busy. And so you can see that it's really easy to change the route just by dragging it and dropping it to where you want to be. Cool. And then
Burton Combe.
What do you fancy?
That's our favourite.
Up through Burton Combe?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can see this place because it's got some highlights, but you can also plan it by just clicking and selecting set as new endpoint. And so then it just extends your endpoint. And here you can see it says that the most efficient way to get to this point is to come up this way, but we want to come here. We can see there are some lovely highlights and segments here. So I can either select one of these highlights to include them on the route, or once again, I can just drag the line over, or I could just click here to add it onto the route. The really lovely thing about these highlights, if you do include them on your route, is it will pull them through to your route preview. So maybe actually I'll select this one because I think it's got a bit more information on it. It will pull through these pictures and these tips onto your route preview, so that when you send it to your friends, they'll get to see. I'm also going to have a look here. So I'm going to select mountain biking to see what highlights that brings up as well. And I got in trouble for suggesting this to somebody who lived in the Peak District, but depending on where you live, if it is quite flat, gentle, and you're quite confident with your gravel riding, then sometimes it's worth like planning in mountain biking mode just to see what suggestions it comes up with. Because particularly like around Bristol, there are some hills, but they're not particularly savage. And it's not, it's all kind of clay soil really, so there's nothing particularly rocky. So sometimes it's worth a little, but yeah, I did want to say this to somebody from Peak District. I was like, oh yeah, just plan your gravel rides and mountain biking. You'll have like way more adventurous rides. And they were like, that was horrifying.
I do that loads. Yeah. Obviously dependent on whereabouts you're adventuring. But if you're like, I don't know, maybe in the New Forest or somewhere that you know is quite genteel for the most part, it'll maybe take you on a little bit more single track and that sort of stuff. Yeah. Worth experimenting with.
Definitely. Yeah, so for this highlight here, what I did is I just clicked, I'll do it again. I clicked include on route. So Burton Combe Bridleway, click on it, and I click include on route. And then this little section of my route goes dark red to show it. And then it's also available here in my list of waypoints on the left. Super useful. And then should we go around the quarry? And then I really love this bridleway out. It's a favourite, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a Bristol classic. Past the airport, up and over a massive hill. Massive to me anyway.
What I find really funny is I've only discovered this in like Corona times. So the airport's always quiet. And there's this lovely house like up on the corner here. Do you know the one I'm on about? That's got like these lovely cottage gardens. No, and every time I go past it, I think, oh, this would be like my dream house. But then I realise that they're really close to the airport. So they're probably having the best time.
Yeah, there's got to be some perks.
And then there's just another highlight here that I can see along the way. So I'm going to include that. Even though the route is going this way anyway, I want to include this in the route, partly because it is sort of like a technical bit, and so by including it in the route, my friends will be able to see that there's something coming up that I'll probably warn them to, but you know. Depends who you're riding with, whether they like surprises or not. You get to know your riding buddies pretty well. And then it's quite hard to see. There's a little bit more bridleway here into Rington, but this section between Rington and the bottom of the Mendips, it's quite hard to see much in the way of off-road. So we might just stick on the lanes.
Perhaps, you could zoom in and show us the difference between, in the UK at least, footpaths, byways and bridleways, because that's a fairly new feature.
Yeah. I was really pleased with this because I remember having a meeting with the map squad and being like, yeah, no, this is a thing in the UK, like we really need this, and then they implemented it and it was like, yes.
Yeah.
So here's a really good example. So here we have a bit of double track here. So this is like the double hashed lines, so that means it's like an access track or fire road. And then this solid brown line is bridleway, and this solid black line is footpath. And then here you can see there's a barrier.
And what about the S1?
And then the S1 is in relation to the single trail scale. So the single trail scale is like universal. So it'll be the same if you're in the UK or in Slovenia. And it relates to like the difficulty of the terrain. So actually I'm going to click open here and go down to single tracks for mountain bikes and open this one in a new tab. So basically they range from S0 for easy to S5 for difficult. And they display on the map next to the trail. You can see from here, S0 is like really nice, like wide paths, compacted gravel. I think of this as like a canal, like towpath or a cycleway. You'd be happy kind of like going along here on a touring bike. S1 then is more like a blue trail at a mountain bike centre, so mostly compacted gravel, but you will have some, maybe some like small roots and rocks as obstacles. Then S2 is more like a red trail, so it may be a looser surface or more roots and rocks. The turns will also be a bit tighter and steeper gradients as well. And then S3 and S4, you're going into like enduro territory. And what's quite nice about Komoot is that the two different planning types, so mountain biking is like cross-country mountain biking. The most it will plan you on is an S2. And then enduro will plan you on the more techie stuff.
That's interesting. So if you're using the mountain biking route planner to do a gravel bike route, at least you know that you won't be going on to S3, S4, S5.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, there's some and then there's also, I'll show you how you can interrogate this a bit more. So I'll just set Rington as my endpoint so that you can see then what this S1 bit looks like. So what you can do is you can hover over the section in the interactive elevation profile, and it will tell you any single track gradient. Or you can also overlay onto your elevation profile your way types and your surfaces. And so then that's really cool. So then you look for where the brown bars are overlaid. So show that you've got unpaved and single track. And that's where you'll get your single trail.
Yes.
Rating.
That's the dream.
That's the good stuff. And then, yeah, and you can always press and hold the letter M on your keyboard.
Oh, that's the best tip.
Yeah. Press and hold M. There's also a little hide the tour line button up here. If you want to turn that off and on. And I think we've developed a button for Android now. And there's one in development for iOS, so that you'll actually be able to use this function on your phone. Because it's like, since we started doing webinars, everybody's like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that existed. It's my favorite function ever.
It's so handy.
It's so handy. This is one of my favorite highlights, the bench of extreme discomfort.
It's so good. I love it.
It does a great job of reshaping your spine and lower back into a permanent stoop of agony. I quite like that bench. I think it comes at a good point. You can like have a snack before then, like going up the Mendips. Cool. So then what do you want to do? Do you want to head straight up to Beacon Batch or go up through Roborough?
Roborough, yeah.
Yeah.
That's not one of my favourite places.
So that was my new endpoint. And then this is where we might want to do a little bit of adjustments because it wants us to come up here. I also really like that all the caves show up. I've never actually been inside a Mendip cave.
Caving is big in the Mendips though.
Yeah, really big.
Not for me. I'd rather stay above ground, I think.
Oh, I'm trying to think how I'd normally go up. Maybe this is the right way actually.
Yeah, that's where I'd usually go actually.
That is the right way. That is where I'd usually go. And then that will take us into Roborough. And then you could either plan in a little bit of the official trails here, or sometimes what I do is I'll just plan my route to there because I know that once I get there I'll be able to follow the signs. and then maybe we'll head out to the trig point. And so I just keep on setting it as my new endpoint, but there is actually a keyboard shortcut. So if you press and hold shift, no, I'll get this right, option. Yeah, if you press and hold option and click, then it will just set it as your new endpoint automatically.
Wow, that's another thing I've learned today. I'm writing that down.
You know, you can find all these, Catherine, if you go to the question mark and you go down to pro tips and shortcuts, it's got all of the keyboard shortcuts. So you can press C to center the map, H to hide. I wonder how many like minutes this would save you in like making a collection. M to hide the tour line, and yeah, add a waypoint, hold down Alt or Option if it's a Mac, and click to add a new waypoint.
That's very handy.
Yeah, and it just means that you don't have to keep on double clicking, which is really useful. Right, how are we doing for time? So what I'll do is I'll whiz through the finishing of this route and then we'll do some questions.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, we've done some of the way types. And actually this is probably another good point to show again how you could look at overlay satellite view to have a look at what you've got. And again, you can press M to see that, yeah, this is a well established. Also, sometimes the pictures from the highlights are really useful because you can also see like what bikes people were riding and what they might say. So like that's an amazing picture of the surface. Or like my favorite one is like when people say like, oh yeah, this is like absolutely fine on a gravel bike, but like not in the winter, or you know, slippery when wet. Cool.
Yeah, it was kind of my mission in lockdown 1. I wanted to map out most of the byways and bridleways around my part of Bristol. So me and my boyfriend John would just go out every evening in the summer. And so I was making these highlights, trying to ride along, taking nice pictures of the surface. But then I think in each one of them, there's one of John ahead of me, obviously, because he's much faster. And just his ass.
Here's John.
So now half of the Bristol highlights are just, yeah, the rear end of my boyfriend for scale. Oh dear.
Hilarious.
But no, there are some gorgeous pictures on there. It's really cool.
Yeah. It's also a really funny place to get stuck in the snow. Cool. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to plan us a bit of a different way back, I think, to mix it up possibly, although I think this is probably not a very fun one. Yeah, I've even said best written as a descent, but I'm going to send us back this way just to have a bit of a
heck. Oh, I haven't done that one. That's cool.
Have you not? I think it was Kerry Jargo that took me down there the first time.
Nice.
But it's since become, it's like one of those like little gullies that's just had a stream running down it all winter, so it's just so eroded now. So you sort of end up like unclipping one foot and just like scooting down this like little ditch. And then you can start having a look. If you aren't somewhere that's got an amazing resource of highlights, this would say if I just turn them off, then I'd be looking for either little brown lines to show me bridleways or these little bits of double track. Because we're definitely a little bit spoiled in Bristol.
And I guess the other thing was you could just completely trust the algorithm and just plot between your house and somewhere completely different and then just see what happens.
Yeah, and you could also complete a route this way as well. So at the moment I've plotted myself to here, and maybe I've run out of time or just I want the magical mystery tour, and so then what I can do here is I can go from being a one-way route into a round trip, and that just auto completes my tour using the algorithm in mountain biking mode. So then you can go and interrogate that. John Williams calls it the magical mystery tour.
It's good. Like, I've used it literally going across the country on a tour once. It was sort of winging it as we went along, and I think we went from Shropshire across to Sheffield and just put it in mountain biking mode, and it was brilliant. It took us, I love studying all of this, and especially if it's someone you know, and like piecing it all together. But sometimes it's just fun to be led a bit blind, and I was really impressed.
Yeah, and like go places that you wouldn't necessarily discover otherwise. Like I did it once. I was going from somewhere in Austria to meeting Liam in Italy, and I like had no idea where I was going, and I was hungover, and so I just went like, right, from here to here, go. And I remember having a really horrific section of hiker bike, but then finding this amazing like unpaved alpine pass.
Oof.
And it was just amazing. And then there was this little hut, and I had a beer in the hut, and then just like this, it like was like an old like cobbled road, and it was incredible, and I just wouldn't have found that otherwise. I probably would have just been like, oh, this is too complicated, I'm just gonna take the train, and missed out on an amazing ride. And then another thing that is a fairly recent addition are these little route warnings, which will come up here. So also if you're planning a gravel or a mountain bike ride and you've routed yourself on some footpath, it will tell you that you've planned somewhere that's not possible.
That's really handy
to ride. And then this section, really handy. And this section here tells me that there's a steep uphill, and so that I might want to be prepared to push my bike, which is quite useful. You need to push your bike. And then the final thing, I guess, is that you get this breakdown of your way types and your surfaces. So if I wanted to go through each bit of single track, for example, and check it for like severity, I can go and I can click, and it will take me to it, and I can spend a bit of time interrogating. Or if I wanted to go to every bit of main road, looking how to minimize that, then you can also do that. A premium feature is then to go and see the weather forecast for the route that you've planned. So maybe we do this day after tomorrow.
What's that, Saturday? This is sounding like our weekend plans now.
I think everybody in Bristol is off to Wales this weekend.
I'm off to Wales tomorrow. Yes. I
can't wait. Everybody's been waiting. I like being able to see the wind direction as well, having the little arrows. Might make you decide to actually reverse the route, which you can do by hitting this little button here to reverse the waypoint order. So you can see that the wind is like less in the afternoon or something.
Handy.
So really useful. Is there anything that I've maybe missed out, or should we dive into the questions?
Yeah, there's just a question that's come up from Isaac. Is there an undo button?
Yes, you just press the back button on your browser, and that will undo the last thing that you did.
Took me a while to get there. But yeah,
you can also use forward as well to redo something, and then I think we're working on, or have maybe already released, an undo button for Android, and the iOS one is coming shortly.
Great.
The way I understand it is that iOS is much harder to develop for Android, which is why the Android stuff gets released sooner, but it is coming for iOS. I'm just not exactly sure when.
I had a question about hiding the tour line, why you might want to do that. I think it's like if you've already plotted over something and then you want to go back and check. It's a bit like, I don't know if you did this when I was younger, being taught how to use maps for DOV and hiking, and we would plot our route on a paper map, but you wouldn't draw your line on top of exactly where you're going, because then you can't check if it's a bridleway or a footpath, or if you've covered over some sort of icon. So you just did a little dashed line next to it. I guess this is the digital equivalent. So if you press that button, then you can look underneath exactly what you've plotted and just double check.
Yeah, precisely that. So the planning line totally obscures the key underneath. So here, for example, I could be like, oh, I've planned myself along like a busy road, but then I can press M and be like, no, there's a cycle path. And then you could look that up to see if it was like segregated. So yeah, especially with the bridleways and the footpaths, because they are narrow, solid lines, it can be quite hard to distinguish them. So that's really useful. And also on satellite view, if you're trying to work out if it is a trail or a bog, trail or bog.
We've got a question from Oliver Jenkins saying, can you amend speed for the estimated time aspect and to pull through to Garmin head units? Would that come under fitness?
Yes, and this will update your like virtual partner if you use that on Garmin. So you can see here at the moment I've got it as good shape, and it says that it's going to take me 3 hours and 59 minutes. And there's basically like a speed algorithm that will go through the whole route and will say, right, for this fitness, for this way type, for this gradient, this is how long it's going to take you for like each segment. So it allows it for taking longer if you're riding on rougher terrain. And then yeah, so if I then went to like pro, then that takes me 2.5 hours. My top tip for bike packing is to put it on couch potato. We are reviewing this wording because couch potato is not obviously not a very positive way to talk about
party pace.
It's not even being unfit, just going slow. Party pace. I mean, I think
stopping in all the cafes. Pace. Yeah, enjoying the view and taking
carrying
lots
loads
of
luggage and like taking time. Yeah, exactly.
Slow is okay, says Chris. Brilliant.
Yeah, we are not sponsored by ADAV. But yeah, definitely when you're bike packing or just carrying a bit more luggage or just taking your time, definitely enjoying the view, I like turning the fitness down so that you don't then bite off more than you can chew. There's nothing worse than being like, oh shoot, there's no way we can do 40k today because it's just like too hilly, and then getting stressed out that you're not gonna like cover the full distance.
Yeah. And another one regarding timestamps and timetable for specific locations along the route from Andrew. I guess you'd scroll across the elevation. Yes.
So I've got this on Couch Potato, and I think that the place I probably, yes, I've started at 8 in the morning, and then so it's going to take me 5.5 hours. I probably want to stop for lunch 4 hours ish in. So you can start to look at, so yeah, after 30k, I'm at sort of 3 hours 40. So if I zoom to view all, I can start to see where this might be, and I can start to correlate this with places. But I can also see that there's a really big hill, so I know that I probably want to snack before that, so then I could go in to have a look at some of these places, and then use a combination of highlights or POIs to put like food and drink. And then I could see maybe there's a pub.
Well, the Plume of Feathers is a good pub.
Is it?
Yeah, it's really nice.
So there we go. And then I could pop that and include that on the route. And then it'd do me. Oh, but it's included on the way back. So then what I can do is I can change it. Here we go. It's always a risk doing these things live. So it's included it as waypoint 12, but I actually wanted it waypoint 7. So Plume of Feathers. So I take these 3 little dots and I put it after waypoint 7 before Roborough Warren. There we go. And it's included me a little out and back. So we can have a nice pub garden lunch before going and messing around in Roborough, because there's nothing worse than riding on an empty stomach.
I've got another one for you, Al, from Paul, who's completely new to Komoot. If I use Komoot to plan and want to share the route with a friend who doesn't use it, can he or she still use it on their GPS?
Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll save this route. So the friend would need to sign up to Komoot to be able to get the route. And if they want to navigate it on their GPS, if anybody wants to navigate it on their GPS device, they need to have unlocked that region of the map. And so this is part of our like freemium subscription model. So this is nothing to do with premium. So when you sign up to Komoot, you get a region of the map for free. And what that allows you to do is to save maps offline onto your phone, and also to export GPS files or sync that route with a Garmin or a Wahoo, for example. So if you're sharing it with a friend who doesn't have Komoot, you could invite them with a link, and you could send that to them like over WhatsApp or email, and they would get a slightly different landing page. Then rather than just taking them straight to the route, it would take them to a landing page that was like, hey, why don't you join Komoot? And then if they scroll down, they'll see the route. Or what you can also do, obviously we think that they'll think Komoot is awesome too and want to use it, but you can also you could also just export to GPS device, download the GPX file, and then send them the file. But obviously if they just get the file, then they don't get this lovely route preview with all the images, the tips from other riders, just giving them little insights onto what the trail might be like. So yeah, and also the fully interactive elevation profile at the bottom. With a pub. It's got even got a little pub sign.
It's cute, isn't it? I've got another question for you, Al.
Yeah.
Any tips on planning a route in a completely unknown place in Komoot? And will I be able to add highlights once I've visited for people to visit in the future?
Yeah, definitely. So if you want to plan somewhere that you have no idea, then I would definitely try and plan like a local. So I would look to include some highlights, if possible, if highlights exist there. If they didn't, then maybe what I'd look at is I'll probably start doing some Google searching to look for oh shoot, am I late for a meeting? Damn. Hang on a second. I will have to disappear in a second.
I guess when I've planned in places before that I've never visited, like Al said, like using highlights, but also trusting the algorithm. So maybe rather than you sort of zoom out a bit, and if you know you want to ride 100 kilometers, say, planning your start point, which I assume you know, and a halfway point and then a finish point, and then just sort of see what it recommends in between. But yeah, the local knowledge and the highlights definitely help. And the more you zoom in, the more highlights you see. And you're more likely to see highlights based on the way type that you've chosen. So here Elle's chosen mountain biking, so you're more likely to see mountain biking highlights. But if you zoom right in, then you'll see other highlights like hiking highlights, which can also be really helpful, and running and cycling ones. So yeah, they're really, really handy.
Yeah, that's a really some really good tips and insights there. I also, if I am going somewhere and I can see that someone's made a highlight, then I might look at actually go and look at their profile and look at their routes, because they might have created a highlight, but they might actually have lots of routes or rides, for example, for that area. Maybe this isn't a great example because they don't have a lot on their profile.
Pioneers, yeah.
But yeah, looking for the pioneers of that region, which you can do if you go to the pioneer area. So if you've added, I think, 4 highlights, then you get this little pioneer tab, and so you could look for a pioneer of that region, and then look at what they're recommending and where they're riding and exploring. Yeah, once you've ridden anywhere, you can go and add highlights. So if you go to your completed tours, you have to have been there to be able to recommend it. And then what you go then is you go to edit tour. And then this is where you can go in. You can actually crop your tour. So before we had privacy zones, this was a really easy way to just obscure your home location. You can change the details of your tour. So it's really important here because your highlight will be created in the sport type that your activity was saved as. So sometimes if you go for a really slow mountain bike ride, it thinks you went hiking, and if you went for a really fast gravel ride, it might think you went road cycling, and that's just to do with the speed. So just make sure that you've got the right sport type selected. You can add your photos here. I normally just add the pictures on my phone, but the useful thing here is you can actually use this little pin to reposition your pictures. So they should just get loaded based off the GPS metadata in the picture if you've allowed your camera to access your location. But if you're using a digital camera, for example, that doesn't have that geolocation, then you can reposition. You can also choose like how your pictures appear in the sort of little montage, and then go to highlights. And what it will ask you to do first of all is to rate the other highlights that you visited, and then you can post tips, essentially like recommending them as you would to a friend why other Komoot users should check out this spot. So I'm just going to skip now in the interest of time, but you can just keep on doing this. And then once you've rated all of your highlights, it'll ask you if you've got any pictures. They're not all useful. Selfies are not very useful. No, you don't need to see my face. Sorry, clicking everywhere. But these two ones that show the trail in like different conditions might be. So I'm going to add them. And skip. Cool. Skip. And then once you've finished, you can go and create a new highlight. You can highlight a place or a segment. You don't need an image to create a highlight, but it's a nice addition. If you don't have an image, then somebody else can add one at another point. Once you've created a highlight, it becomes kind of open source almost. And then you can highlight a segment and you get these two little pins. And then my pro tip for creating segment highlights is to put them between junctions so that people can come on to that the segment from any direction. So actually I would probably move this pin maybe in here so that people could come at it up this fire road. Maybe there's a bridleway there as well. So actually there we go. So they can come at it from the bridleway or this fire road or this fire road and then all the way up to the junction here. And that's how I would create that one, and it's nice and tidy. Or you can highlight a place and then it's just one pin. And then you go and you give it a nice name and add a helpful tip. And then on the next page, it will ask you to add any images if you have them. But I'm not going to add this because that's a fake highlight. Yeah, any more questions?
I think we've ticked off most of them, but do get in touch if you have any questions at any time. You've got our email addresses, I think I'll had there, and get in touch with Adventure, get in touch with me personally, drop us a line through any social media platform of your choosing, or through the site. I'm more than happy to help at any point. And if you're not already, then go and give the Adventure profile a follow. We've hopefully got some exciting plans coming up over the summer and some cool trips. So we really want to share more cool routes like this with you so that you can go and do them as well. But yeah, thank you very much, Elle.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for having us along.
Brilliant.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks everyone.
For lunchtime with us.
Happy
Bye.
planning. Bye.